Dino Sofos is from Persephonica.
Correct.
Hey.
Hello.
Now, yesterday we were talking to someone from New York, and the title of their presentation was "Do Celebrity Podcasts Work?" They were arguing often not. But you have shown that they really can work with the recent hits, Dua Lipa, Lily Allen.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I think that's right. There are a graveyard full of celebrity podcasts that have flopped.
Why is that?
I think it's very hard. You need commitment from your talent, whether that's a radio presenter or whether that's a pop star. The rules don't change. You need somebody who's really invested in the format, who's committed to doing the research. You can't just turn up and present a successful podcast for half an hour and then go home. It's about building an audience. It's about doing your research. If you're doing an interview show like Dua's is, properly like thinking about the interviews and honing your skills as an interviewer, as she has done really well. And then with Miss Me, which is the show we make for the BBC, presented by Lily Allen and Miquita Oliver, there's a genuine friendship at the heart of that show. These presenters go back years and they have an authentic relationship. And they've built a community of listeners. We just did 2 sold-out live shows in London at the weekend.
How many people at those shows?
It was about 1,200 a night, and the shows sold out in under 10 minutes. So we could have done bigger venues, but that was our like first sort of like journey into the live show. But it was fascinating to see how engaged this audience were. That they would come out on a Thursday, Friday night, spending their hard-earned cash to come and watch a podcast being recorded, and they really wanted to get close with their presenters because they're like invested in their lives. They want to know what's going on, they want to hear from them, they want to spend time with them, they want to be in a room with them. So you can get it right, but it takes a lot of hard work and a lot of commitment from the talent, and in this case it's pop stars, who often have very busy schedules. So like Dua Lipa, you couldn't have somebody who's more busy, right? She's like off doing world tours and finds the time to do the research, to sit down, like plan questions, and then do the interviews. So it's like hours out of her schedule.
And they have to genuinely love it and want to do it as well. They have to have that passion there.
And be good at it.
And be good at it.
Yeah.
It's interesting because we had Jackie O yesterday and Emma O'Neill, her co-host for the podcast, Her Best Life. And because of their genuine, long-standing friendship, that comes across, and then the audience feel like they know them personally.
Right.
And then I remember once listening to Howard Stern on radio, giving out about when Oprah joined Sirius Radio because she turned up and did a few shows and disappeared again, but took a massive paycheck, and it didn't rate.
It's about consistency, and to build a successful always-on show, you have to be always on. Miss Me has 2 episodes a week.
But why do radio stations still get it wrong then when they think, well, if we get the big name, they will come? Like if we just put a big name onto a podcast, or we put them on a social media person onto radio, it'll translate.
Well, the truth is you have to have a combination of everything. The big personality with a big social media following gets the interest, and people will come to it. But if people come to the first episode and it's rubbish, or if
just waffle,
if the format isn't strong, then they won't come back. And also, if you do 2 episodes, 3 episodes, 4 episodes, and then you disappear for 6 weeks, you can't build a habit. You have to be consistent. You have to be unavoidable, basically. And that's really what we did with Miss Me. Working with the BBC, we had a huge marketing campaign to launch it, but then we also made sure that the content was really strong, that it was in people's feeds. We worked with our partners at Apple and Spotify to make sure it was kind of on the front page of those apps. So it's a combination of everything, really.
When you say work with them to make sure, because that is the holy grail, getting on the front page. Right. So are you talking like bribery? Are you like holding ransom, kidnappings, or?
No, we've got great relationships with the streaming platforms. So we just say, look, we've got this great show. Also, it helps that it's presented by 2 women, right?
Yeah.
How many podcasts are there presented by 2 women who are being outspoken about sex, relationships, politics? So I think a lot of people were clamoring for a show like that, and Apple were very happy to support us because it was they needed something. There was just like loads of shows presented by 2 white men, so it's nice to have a mixed race person and 2 women presenting a show.
When you make it to like the front page of Apple or Spotify, what does that do for the metrics?
Again, I've had shows that it hasn't done very much for because the shows weren't that strong. I think when we look back and think, why didn't that? You certainly saw an uptick, but I think it's there's the kind of secret sauce really, which is like the ingredients have to be really convincing talent that people are interested in hearing from, a great format and really great production and a really great marketing strategy. Once you get all those 4 things and they align, then you're onto a winner. But if one of those things doesn't quite, fit, then you've got a problem.
Is Miss Me, because it is for the BBC, is it broadcast on radio as well? Nowhere on radio.
Just purely on demand.
Okay.
And we're about to start doing, so we visualise the show as well, and we're about to start doing fully visualised episodes on YouTube. It has its own audience on social media, so many people consume the podcast just by watching clips, actually, which is fascinating.
I keep thinking this is the final question, and then I think of 50 more questions to ask you. But that was another thing that they were talking about yesterday, when you should and shouldn't visualise a podcast for like YouTube. What do you gain, but what do you lose as well? When you visualize something like that, do you lose something in it, that intimacy of audio, or do you lose?
I think it is tricky, and I know there's a huge debate going on about visualized podcasts. I've been visualizing podcasts since 2019 when we did Brexit Cast, which we put on BBC One. And I remember the conversation then, which was, as soon as the BBC wanted to visualize it, was like, oh, we should put this in a TV studio.
Yeah.
And I said, no, absolutely not, because then it becomes a TV show, not a podcast. If you put a floor manager and a cameraman in there, you change the whole intimacy. Actually, what we did is we had fixed cameras that were just inside the podcast and radio studio, and it was a visualized podcast. So you can get it wrong. You can, and a lot of the things.
Sometimes it can look like I remember someone explaining it to me once, saying, "No, we're not going to do this because it looked like a bad TV show rather than an okay visualized podcast."
There are a lot of examples of that, and I think I've seen people talking about visualized podcasts, and I'm like, I think that's basically a TV show, and also which is fine because there's no right or wrong answer here. We're making content, and I think this whole idea of what is this? It's it doesn't matter. It's content. People are consuming it.
Yeah.
We are where the audiences are, but in my mind, a visualized podcast is a podcast that you're filming the recording of the podcast, right? And that's what we do with Miss Me. And what's really interesting about that is the coasts are in 2 different places. So Lily's in New York, Miquita's in London. So we've set up remote visualization setups in both of their homes, which are 4K, doesn't need a camera person to operate it. And they looked fantastic. It's not like a YouTube, it's not like a FaceTime call or a Zoom call that we're recording. It's high quality production.
4K, so you can easily get high quality vertical out of it.
Yeah, it looks great. It doesn't look like I say, it doesn't look like a Zoom call, which I think a lot of remote podcasts do. But it's a podcast.
Yeah.
And if we were to put that on TV, it would be a different thing. It would be we'd probably have to have a studio, a floor manager,
in the same location,
in the same room. You have to have them in the same location. So, look, for me, visualization, we just see the data. We know people are consuming podcasts on YouTube in their billions. We have to be there. As an industry, it's no good saying, should we do visualization? You have to do visualization now. It's not an option anymore, really, for me. And we've been visualizing podcasts for years. There's been a conversation about whether full episodes need to go on there, if it's just chunky clips that you're then pushing people to the RSS. But increasingly, people just want to consume them on YouTube.
Want to take it there, yeah. Hey, great talking to you. Enjoy the rest of Radio Days.
Cheers. You too.